Welcome to Portuguese In, first bilingual news weekly show, coming soon in just a few minutes. About 15 years ago, I founded NPG Multimedia Productions. For the past 10 years, I have produced more than 1,000 interviews featuring Portuguese Americans for Portuguese National Satellite Television, RTP. Success stories from agriculture to Hollywood, featured on TV news reports, documentaries, and books published by Portuguese In, with distribution on Amazon.com. Today we start a new chapter bridging Portugal and the 5 million Portuguese and their descendants living abroad. Portuguese In started documenting the main areas where the Portuguese are present. It started with the Portuguese in California, the history of generations, a documentary TV series of 9 episodes. Portuguese in Hawaii, the history of close to 7 generations that crossed oceans, searching for a better life in the New World. Portuguese in New England, featuring the vibrant Portuguese Americans living in the East Coast on a 4-episode series produced by RTP and available on Amazon. The saga will continue in other areas featuring history, heritage, home. In the meantime, welcome to our first Portuguese In weekly news bilingual show. Hi, I'm NPG and you are watching Portuguese In, history, heritage, home. Thank you so much for being on the show. Share, comment, so that we can reach as many Portuguese Americans, Portuguese Canadians, Portuguese all over the world. We're going to focus on America in this first episode, but then we will go across all kinds of continents to bring the Portuguese culture to you. We have a great lineup on this show. The first thing that we're going to do here is to work on the Portuguese elections that are coming up this Sunday. Elections in Portugal are very important this time, and things are very tied up. And in this show, I have the Minister of Portugal, the candidate for the Socialist Party, to explain some of his measures for our area, and several guests in this show to make it a great show. I hope you enjoy it. And here's what's coming very, very, very soon on this show. Please stay tuned, comment, share, and I hope you enjoy it. Well, right now we're going to welcome our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Augusto Santos Silva. He is also the candidate for the this coming election. And more than a candidate, I think he's a great person to explain a little bit about how the elections are important, and it's important for everybody outside of Portugal, even if they don't live here, to vote. And there was more than 1.5 million votes that were shipped to all continents, so it's crucial that we take advantage of that. Abstention's been about 90%, more than 90%. The last election, we're hoping to see the numbers a little bit better, but it's a process that it's going to take time. So let's please welcome, I'm very honored to receive here one of the most prominent figures of Portuguese politics. Forget, parties, forget everything else. He's just a great individual that is very respected in the academia and in many areas. So please welcome our special guest, Augusto Santos Silva.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity. Just a very brief personal presentation. I'm introducing myself. I'm a 65-year-old Portuguese born in Porto. My family was also a family of immigrants in Brazil, in Europe, in Africa, and I have three children. One of my daughters lives now in France. My son lives in Germany. So I have a personal and effective connection with the world, the rights and the interests of Portuguese living abroad. I'm a full professor of sociology. My PhD is in sociology, and I work at the Faculty of Economics of the University of Porto. But since I was a young boy, I have a very permanent civic and political activity. And so I already served as member of the Portuguese Parliament and as a member of successive governments, administrations, as you would say, serving as Minister for Education, for Culture, then Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, Minister for Defense, and now for the last 6 years as Minister of Foreign Affairs. In 2019, I was the first ever Minister of Foreign Affairs who decided to run for elections for in the constituency of people living abroad, outside Europe. It was the first time I was elected as an MP representing the Portuguese living outside Europe. And now I'm running again in order that you can assess my work as an elected MP and also and mostly as a Minister of Foreign Affairs, so the responsible for our policy for the Portuguese diaspora. Now, if you allow me, some informations on what is going on right now. We are having elections for what we call the Assembleia da República. This is our parliament. We are a parliament. We have a parliamentary regime in the sense that you elect the MPs, you elect the members of the parliament, and then the President of the Republic appoints the Prime Minister, taking into consideration the results of the parliamentary elections. So, as a matter of fact, we will choose both our MPs and the next Prime Minister. Our parliament has 230 seats. Four of them are reserved to the MPs representing the Portuguese that live abroad. Two MPs represent people living in Europe, and two MPs, one is myself, representing people living outside Europe, in Africa, in Asia, and mainly in the Americans, in the United States, in Brazil, Canada, and other countries. The four MPs representing people living abroad, what we call the Portuguese communities abroad, belong to the two main parties, PS, that is the equivalent to the Democratic Party in the United States, and PSD, that's the center-right party. The four MPs representing the Portuguese communities abroad have a very fruitful work of cooperation among them. That's why the Socialist Party decided to present again the same candidates for these two constituencies, and one of them is myself. We don't need in Portugal to register as voters. As members of Portuguese citizens, we are automatically entitled to vote. that we call in Portuguese recenseamento, a kind
And
of
that is
political census.
something very new this year. That is, you guys shipped tons of bulletins all over the world, and a big effort to so that the Portuguese would have the same rights. And but we're still working on the levels. And in Portugal, sometimes they don't see that as a good thing because we have more than 90% absentees. But it's something that with time it will work out, I'm sure.
But I think that I can speak for all candidates in saying that this is not a one-off event. This is a process. For instance, in the 2015 elections for the Portuguese Parliament, less than 30,000 Portuguese living abroad voted. In 2019, it was almost 160,000 of Portuguese, so 6 times more. So this is a process. I expect that in the next elections, more people will vote. It's very easy to vote by mail because you receive, as you have said, the ballots home, and you just have to send them back with
Let me add,
no for you, cost
Silva,
for
that
you.
it's really, really imperative that people start, if they're listening to us, they start sending those mailing ballots
Yes,
because and they need to come to Portugal and be accounted by February 8th, if I'm not mistaken.
yes, because there is a certain delay attending the interests of the Portuguese living abroad. So the ballots are counted only 1 week later the election day, but still we cannot wait forever. So the 9th February, the ballots will be counted, and the final results will be published. So as soon as possible, you know that English expression, ASAP, as soon as possible, you have to choose whoever you want. I, of course, have a
Oh,
personal interest.
one thing for sure, if everything goes as planned and as usual, Europe will elect one on the Socialist Party, one on the Democratic Party, and outside of that other circle is the same. It would take a huge victory of either party to have two. So just to be clear, for whoever is listening to us that has no idea of how it works, we elect four that represent the communities, two in Europe, two outside of Europe. And it's usually one from PS, the Socialist Party, one from PSD, the Democratic Party. So we don't really have a Republican Party, which would be more of a CDS or a Chega if you want to go more extreme, or of a Iniciativa Liberal. It's usually those two parties that elect the representatives, and I believe my prediction is it will probably stay the same. The question now is if PS will win and Augusto Santos Silva will become probably our minister again, or if it won't and he will still be elected as deputado representing our communities.
Well, that's a decision that is in the hands of the voters, and the more voters we have, the more important will be the decision. So,
And
my first of all, I commend all the people who are eager to vote, and I invite all my citizens to vote. It is very important to be represented in our parliament, in our House of Representatives, as you have said. And as you have rightly said, you have a choice. The main choice is between our Conservative Party, PSD, and our Liberal Party or Democratic Party, the PS.
And Professor Augusto Silva, please allow me to bring to the conversation somebody I know that you respect tremendously and that I also love. One of the most known figures outside of Portugal, very respected for in many areas. Let me bring Professor Onésimo de Almeida to weigh in this situation, and especially he will be able to give us an idea of why do you think, Professor Onésimo, that we don't vote as much? A lot of people say it's because they were used to the Salazar regime when they left and they didn't have that opportunity. So, Professor Onésimo, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. You've been a big supporter of my books, of my documentaries, somebody huge like you. supporting me means a lot. So, what do you think about what's coming next? And the minister talking to us about elections is also something new. We're not used to seeing, in this case, a candidate, but a minister approaching the communities and being with the communities. Tell us, what do you think about what's going to happen this Sunday as far as the communities?
First of all, I would like to salute you and to um, tell you that this initiative of yours is quite impressive. I would like to say hi, hello to the minister, who has been really a great figure in this government. And but I would like to start by saying that the fact that the Portuguese Americans, or the Portuguese in America, don't vote does not mean that they are not interested in Portugal. They are indeed very much so. They are so much interested, and this interest has been increasing in the last 5 to 10 years. The image of Portugal has changed tremendously in the Anglo media, and the Portuguese are proud of that. And the increase of communications between Portugal and the communities here through internet, but also through tourism, has offered a quite positive view of Portugal. That as is the Portugal as now seen by Americans in general, but also by the Portuguese Americans in a very positive light. So they are interested in Portugal. The problem is, how do you get them, and why are they not interested in politics? Well, they were, I remember very well, in 1974, after the revolution, and because of the Azorian independence struggle, etc., the Portuguese here were extremely involved. But Portuguese, not only the Azorians, but they were all very much interested in politics, to a point that when Mário Soares came here in 1987, he sent a team to prepare his trip, and they met with me and they asked me, what advice should I give? What should I tell the Portuguese? And I told them, forget about Portugal. Don't try to intervene in Portuguese politics. You have to intervene. You have to act in American politics. You help Portugal more if you become an active American citizen. That was the message, and that has been the message for a long time. And as the Portuguese community ages, and many of them die, the new generation, they are Americans. They are more involved with American politics. And then when they look at Portuguese politics, for them, unlike what's happening here, where you're splitting more and more into opposite directions, they look at the two main parties in Portugal as very similar. They hardly know the difference. From the point of view here, it's not clear what are the most significant differences between both parties. So for them, the view here is that the Portuguese Portuguese politicians are too close to each other. They know each other, and things become very personal. So a lot of it is seen as personal politics and not much substance in their differences. So
would you agree that one of the big
yes.
differences that we have in Portugal, and probably in the rest of the world, is that in the rest of the world, especially America and Canada, there's usually two parties.
Yes.
PSD in PS would be the parties here, but there's a list of, I don't know, 30, 40 different partidos, right? And it is difficult for somebody that receives all of those mailing ballots. I get that question of, like, I don't know, where would I start? Right, Onesm? Yeah, so thank you for your contribution. Onesim's been a reference in the Portuguese community. He has represented Via Portugal, and he is one of the references in our community. Let me bring the next topic here, and the next topic is some questions that concern the Portuguese Americans. What are the main things that concern the Portuguese living in America and Canada, abroad, that really, 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 they really need Portugal to do something? Now I'm going to bring here to the show somebody very special that owns the largest Portuguese radio station in America, and I would risk to say in the world. I have not seen a radio station that has huge coverage like this. They do a great job. They have many, many, many people working for them, professionals that are great. And she is going to bring her input here on what are some of the things that they could do for us all over the world, and tell us a bit about this radio station to my audience here on Portuguese In. Welcome to the show, Paulina.
Thank you, Nelson. I wouldn't say the biggest station in the world, but the biggest Portuguese station outside of Portugal. Portugal has big Portuguese radio stations.
Yeah, I was
Um,
mentioning outside of Portugal. This show is focused on the Portuguese abroad.
um, well, we have a community that's very much connected to Portugal. We have a community with multi generations, some of them that were born here in the United States, some of them that came to the United States when they were very, very young. We have people that their parents, grandparents, great grandparents are the ones that came to the United States. And those individuals are still very, very much connected to Portugal and what is happening in Portugal. And they like news from Portugal, and they like to know what is going on in Portugal, and what is new, what is happening, how Portugal is changing, how it has changed. So that's a very, very important factor. They like all things Portugal, Portuguese in Portugal. They like to travel to Portugal, and they like to take their American friends to Portugal. They like the Portuguese food. They like Portuguese history, Portuguese culture, the music, the language. In New England, we still have a very vibrant, big Portuguese community. Many schools teach the Portuguese language, so there's an interest in that. There's still many, many cultural events, Portuguese cultural events in the community. Of course, the last 2 years it has been a little difficult, but it's slowly picking up.
Now,
Um,
Paulina, let me bring one topic. I know you've been very critical, you and many others, of how Portugal, no matter what party, left or right, or more PSD or more PS, you've been very critical, as I've been also sometimes defending our community and our rights.
mhm.
What do you think are the main problems right now with Portuguese media, with the consulates? Tell us some of the areas that you would like to see some work done.
Well, I think Portugal has to do a better job in communicating with the communities. And I think when you talk with a community in Europe or in France or in Germany or Brazil, or it's very different from like in United States or Canada, it's very different. The communities are different. It depends how long they've been here, how they're organized. So I think the message to one is not the same message, like the elections. Talking about the elections to the Portuguese in Europe is very different with about talking the elections, like, for example, the Portuguese in New England. People are not in much as in tune to what's going on in Portugal and with the elections as they are in Europe. I mean, the distance. It's a distance. It's an older community, so there's that challenge.
Right, and you've been critical, and one of the things the media did in America is they kind of boycotted all parties, all
Well,
politics, and
we didn't
explain us why.
we didn't really boycott it. If the message doesn't come from Portugal, if they don't send the message, if they don't advertise it, if they don't campaign, like the elections is done here in the United States. Remember, people are used to elections in the United States. There's usually huge media campaigns around that, about the candidates, about the parties. Portugal doesn't do that, especially here in New England. They don't do that. So people want to vote, but they're not informed. They don't know. And then a big difference is in the United States, you vote on a candidate, not on a party
Right, and
necessarily.
then they received that ballot. Oh, like
With
my
all
sister sent me a
the
picture of the
little
ballot, and she's
symbols
very
and
informed.
names, and they don't know.
But they don't know. She's like,
They don't
I
get
don't
it.
know
I
half
mean,
of these
I
people
get
who
phone
represent me.
I get on my phone pictures from friends, people I know, with a ballot, and they tell me, "What is this?" I said,
Right.
"That's the ballot for you to vote in Portugal." And they like, "What? What? How do I do
How did
this?"
that get here? Right, Paulina, we're going to come back to you later to know how are the festas. Everybody wants to know what festas are happening, what is happening in
Okay.
New England, the big festas. We're going to come back to you on that topic of the festas. We're also going to go back to Azores, to the Secretary of Health and Sports, to know how is the COVID, if people are going to be able to celebrate Carnival. But before that, I want to introduce here somebody very special. Catherine Suarez, that is now the new chair of PALCUS. PALCUS, Portuguese American Leadership Council of the United States, is a huge organization, probably the only truly national organization that we have lobbying in Washington, doing several things to advocate the Portuguese rights. Welcome to the show, Catherine.
Hello, Nelson. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, everybody knows that I knows about Palcus, but for those watching that don't know, tell us what Palcus is all about, and what are some of the things that you guys been very critical. I remember that letter you guys sent to the ambassador, then came to the Secretary of State. Now we have the opportunity with a minister to listen to those complaints. And but before that, tell us a bit about Palcus and the beautiful things you guys do.
Well, you gave us a ringing endorsement. We are, in fact, the only active national organization for Portuguese Americans, with our main mission being to give the national Portuguese American community a voice through our work in government relations, advocacy, education. We strive to make this community that has been here for, quite a while now. We're in the third and fourth generations in some places. To make them more audible and make the community themselves want to be heard.
Now, Catherine, and you guys been doing that for at least 30 years.
31, yes, we celebrated 30 years last year in 2021, and so we're in our 31st year now.
I've helped produce many of the galas with Angela. Angela's done a great job, and I'm sure you will continue that path, and we're looking forward to working with you. Catherine, now tell us a bit about the perspective of Palcus, because you could give us a perspective not only of California, Hawaii, Texas, Florida, New England, but you could give a general perspective of how are the consulates and the embassies, and that is one of the main concerns of the Portuguese Americans, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly is. And as a national organization, we get inquiries almost every day from people wondering how we can help them either get an appointment or what the procedures would be to get Portuguese citizenship through one of their grandparents, for example, or how to renew a document, or even how to go about registering to vote, because some of them think they have to register to vote in Portuguese elections. They're not aware that it's an automatic registration as long as you're registered with a consular in a consular area. So basically, the consular network plays a huge role in the lives of Portuguese Americans that want to have a bridge between the U.S. and Portugal. And I'm pretty sure that everybody on this call, everybody or on this program, and everybody that's watching has had some interaction of some form with their local consulate. And it's one of those things where everybody loves to complain about the consulate, right? So it's kind of like complaining about motor vehicles here. But Portuguese Americans are a lot more stringent and a lot less tolerant with any delays or any problems that they might have with the Portuguese consular network. So a couple of years ago,
we have the minister right here, and we don't have this opportunity. He's here as a candidate, and that's one of the reasons also that it's easier to get his attention. And I'm very happy that he is here. And this is a unique opportunity that could change communities forever. And I'll ask this question, Catherine: if there is something that you would ask now our candidate, our current minister, about the embassies and the consulates, what would it be? And I'll tell you this on my end. It is impossible for a country they would have to probably double the amount of employees, double the salaries. So that would be an expense that wouldn't even start to calculate how much is it. So without having that expectation, what could be done, and what would you like to ask the minister on this last opportunity here? Thank you, Catherine.
So I was going to say that resources are the main issue, in that they really need to revise the pay scale to be commensurate with the cost of living, especially in North America. I think that causes them to have a lot of issues retaining good workers and competent employees of the consular network. And when there's no workers, there cannot be any processing of documents or of things that need to be done and things that Portuguese citizens abroad need. So without that, because I know that that's a very large ask, I do feel like there needs to be a better understanding. They need to make more use of the counselors abroad and listen to what the actual constituents abroad have to say, because it feels like a lot of times in the consular network, we can't even get a hold of them to contact them, right? So there are consuls in the US where the phone isn't picked up or the emails aren't replied to. There are consulates that are doing a great job. And sometimes they go in an up and down fashion where they're great for a year or two, and then they go right back to where they were before. So I feel like communication is key. A singular platform or template for all of the websites for the consulates, so that if I go to the consulate in San Francisco's website, I can find the same thing in the same way that I find on the Newark consulate's website, for example, right? So something that simple would just make communication that much easier.
Now, I feel that for it to work perfectly, we would almost have to double the amount of employees and double the pay scale. I know that's not something we could do. Augusto Santos Silva, what is in your proposed agenda on this area that I know that you get complaints from all 140 plus countries where we have Portuguese? So I understand it's not easy to manage for whoever is in charge.
Thank you very much. And first of all, thank you for the questions and also for the criticism. Because I always say running for MP, running for a representative of the community living in Americas, I'm not running for a award. I'm running for a mandate. I want a mandate to pursue with my work. And in this new term, my top priority is the improvement of our consulates, of their organization, of their geography, and also of their methodology. Because we fortunately, Portugal is in a certain way a very fashionable country, so we have a lot of visas being asked throughout the world to visit Portugal. Our community living, for instance, in the United States is more than 1 million people, almost 1.5 million people. And fortunately, they have a very strong connection with Portugal, so they needed to renovate their, for instance, identity card, their passports, they want to register their children, and so on. So we have, as Catherine has said very rightly, we have to negotiate with the trade unions an effective improvement of the pay scale. I was negotiating with the trade union that represents the consulate's workers, and I want to relaunch as soon as possible this negotiation, meaning getting a deal on one side, from my side, better salaries, from their side, gains of productivity. So that's one dimension. The other dimension is to get all the profits you can, all the benefits you can get from the new technologies. Catherine was saying that people want to get an appointment to go to the consulate or to get informations on procedures. So they can get both by contacting a call center with no waste of time going physically to a consulate. So we have by now already 10 countries in which we have established call centers, and one of our priorities for the next term is to extend this service to the United States. And finally, we have to minimize the procedures we demand people to fulfill. I get, Catherine has just said an example. the fact that the registration as a voter is from 2018 automatically done, it means that that's a one less thing to do in a consulate. For instance, we extended um, the we extended from 5 to 10 years the delay in which you don't have to renovate your identity card. So you have to minimize the procedures to combat the red tape, the bureaucracy, in order to improve our services. That's
One,
why the
one
reform
thing, Dr.
of our
Augusto, if you allow me, that I think everybody wants to know is it possible? Do you believe it's possible to increase the number of employees, the salaries across the world in a way that for Portugal is possible?
I think my performance is the best guarantee I can do. In my 6 year term, I increased by 150 the number of workers working in our consulates all over the world, including in the United States, and I opened new six new facilities for consulate service. So, and of course, if I ask my compatriots to vote for me for the Socialist Party in order that I can continue to work, is to pursue this process and to improve the quality of our consulates.
Well, thank you so much for your time here. It's really an honor to have you here in the first show.
It's my
I
honor.
think it's a great thing we're doing here, and we need this more to not only during elections time, as you heard before, I'm sure, but throughout the cycle. And I think that this is the way we're going. Now we're gonna turn out here to the next topic. Please stay tuned, comment, share, like the show. We have great things coming up for you. Next, we're gonna figure out if there's gonna be any festas in Azores, in Madeira, in Portugal, especially in Azores, with a special guest that we have coming up next. All right, next up we have Secretary of Health and Sports in the Azores, Clélio. Thank you so much for coming in this first show. I know you had a busy agenda and you made the time to be with us, so we really appreciate you. Everybody knows you on RTP Açores and International for the COVID reports, for unfortunate reasons sometimes. Tell us a bit about the situation and if can people expect to come here. A lot of people want to come here for Carnaval, for the festas. Will things be canceled? Will not? I know some things we'll only know as it gets closer. But what can you tell us at this point?
Hello. First, a big hug to the Portuguese community in the United States and around the world who are following us. Secondly, congratulations for the first program. And thirdly, sorry for my bad English, not very exercised. But the current situation of the pandemic does not allow great gatherings and clusters of people. So we are living these days, we are experiencing the biggest wave of COVID, but the least severe, with fewer hospitalizations and deaths. But still, we live the pandemic. We have in Azores about 8,000 positive cases. But we are therefore experiencing a new phase of COVID. How I said, less severe, with fewer hospitalizations, but we need to have some measures to control. So in those days, I think the current situation does not allow Carnival. The conditions of our saloons,
Mr. Secretary, you would say at this point that most likely Carnaval will not happen this year.
Yes, the conditions of our saloons in the various villages do not allow great gatherings and clusters. So the Carnival, I think it's month. We are a month to the Carnival. We don't have conditions to the Carnival. But about the festival, who that take many Azorian people to their islands, I think we have conditions to have the festivals in the different villages, different islands, because the expertises said that March, April, we can get more gatherings and classes of people.
That means maybe the summer feasts will be a reality and people could start buying their tickets for that, right?
I think so. In Azores, we have a special condition. More than 87% of the people have completely vaccinated. We have a very good situation, and we have we have less and fewer cases, positive cases. We have fewer obits, deaths. So the situation is generally good. But this actual wave of COVID, this current wave of COVID, have these particularities. So we think that by April, March, May, we have conditions to receive all the Azorians all over the world who want to visit the islands.
And they can still come, even with no Carnival. Terceira and Azores, Madeira and Portugal, still a beautiful place. The weather's been great. Anything else you would recommend? Because the rules, I travel a lot myself, and the rules change a lot, you know, and it's normal. Sometimes you need to test, sometimes it's the certificado digital, other times is the vaccine. At this point, what are some of the main things you advise for people that come outside of Portugal, that come in this specific case to the Azorian archipelago? Some tips and advice, because people get confused. What do I need to do to go there? Am I welcome?
Okay. Nowadays, we still it's the people who comes from the foreign people from the other countries must have a negative test. It's nowadays still in order they may have a test. We think in the 2 months it will not be necessary the test to come to Azores.
So we are getting here some questions, and let's make this interactive. Yeah, place your questions, comments, share. This is what we're doing this for. This is supposed to be a community program where you participate, you will ask your questions. We have Matthew asking if Sant Cristo is happening and if some of the touradas are happening here as well.
So, how I said, we think about March, April, the things will be better, and all these festivals could be realized. Last summer, in the autumn, already we have touradas in Terceira because the situation allows this. So we think about April, May, all these festivals could be run.
Well, Mr. Secretary, good luck. Great job. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We hope to see you here more often in the future, whenever necessary, with big updates for our Portuguese Azorians in this case, living abroad. There's more Azorians living outside of Azores than in the Azores. It's a huge thing, and they follow you. They follow the news. They follow Azores. They follow Portugal, and I think this is another channel for them to stay connected. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Good luck. Stay healthy, and thank you. Thank you.
I can help.
Obrigado. Well, next up, we're going to see how the festas are in other parts of the world. We're going to go to Fall River and Massachusetts to the Portuguese Kids, one of the most viral Portuguese American groups on the internet. They sure do know about the festas. Derek DeMello,
what's
welcome
up,
to
Nelson?
Nice to see you. Thank you for being here, Derek. Well, first of all, congratulations on your guys' success. I know you guys have a tour planned to Portugal. You're bringing the Portuguese Americans all the way to Portugal. I know you're not bringing them to all nine islands, and that's a big problem. You have a big start with some of the major islands. First of
Yes.
all, tell us a bit about what do you feel, because you are all over the community. You travel not only in New England, but you go to California, Bermuda, Canada. Tell us, how has it been these past few years? Do you see things getting better? Are you guys getting booked to do live events?
The past few years, it's completely slowed down. If I'm being partly because of obviously COVID, but even for us too, we took the opportunity to kind of regroup and take some time off. We've just been doing shows for so many years, over and over again. We wanted to take a little bit of a break, but we did go out. And we did notice that there are still some people that are still afraid, still apprehensive to go out and enjoy themselves. But luckily, it hasn't shown that badly for us, for our numbers. We just did the tour last year. We toured during the summer mostly, and we sold out pretty much every show. So for us, we did okay. We're happy with that. But it's a slow process, and I think it's slowed down again because once this winter hit, COVID came back so strong in the United States. So we just said, okay, let's just wait a little bit. So we actually had a show booked for January that we just postponed to March. So yeah.
Now, what about the big festas that, at least for those that are not from your area, like myself, we see the Madeira Festa, the Madeira Field, or the Festa Espírito Santo Fall River, or Dias de Portugal as the main events. Any word on those, if they're going to
Those
happen?
they've all been canceled so far, and right now I have not heard anything official. But I would think that this year we're going to see at least a few come back. I mean, last year a couple small ones came up, but I think this year for sure. I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see this summer is going to be open for business. I think if things start to slow down again, I think people are going to be ready to get out there again.
That's great. Now tell us about your tour. You're bringing people to Portugal. What areas? Tell us all about it.
Yes, so we once again we teamed up with our friends at Sog's Vacations here in Fall River, Massachusetts. So we do a vacation pretty much. There's no other way to say it. It's a little bit of work for us, but it's mostly a vacation. So every year we do someplace different. This year we're doing a little island hopping. So we're going to land in, I believe it's land in Seda, and then from Seda we go to Fayal, and then from Fayal we go to Pico, and then from Pico we go to San Miguel. So we're doing all four of those beautiful islands. It's going to be a great time. It's actually about halfway sold out already, so we only have a few spots left. So if you're looking for a unique vacation, come on with us. And a lot of this is like people that come back because we've been doing it so many years. We have a lot of regulars that like to travel with us. It's a real fun time. It's a real fun time.
That's great, Derek. Thank you for that update on the community there. Paulina, just a final thought on you guys do advertisings of all the festas in your area. What is happening, what is not, and how uncertain are we still about what's happening in America?
Well, there's some uncertainty. There's some festas that are confirmed. IPMA, International Portuguese Music Awards, so far they are going ahead. That's going to be at the end of April. Day of Portugal in Fall River has also confirmed. So far they're going ahead. Carnaval, I mean, I think we had, which is the traditional Zorian, we had 4 dancers. I think we're down to 1, and it's going to be very, very scaled back. The other big event, cultural event, is the Domingos Rebelo exhibit at the Tobacco Whaling Museum, which it's still go ahead. It's supposed to be the end of February. Other feasts, like big feasts like the Madeirense, Festas Madeirense, and the Grandes Festas Espírito Santo in August, that is very hard for them to make a decision about it, because those are feasts that take months of planning, and it's always a hard decision for them to say yes or no, because they would have to say yes now and start planning now, and then a month before it might not be able for them to do it. So they have not said anything, and I'm sure it's a very hard decision for them now.
Now, Derek, to finalize this topic here, what is the next big video that we could see reaching millions of views for the Portuguese kids? I know in these 2 years of COVID, you probably had a lot of time to be creative and think about
We
things.
we did. We're working on a top secret project right now, so that's why we're not showing a lot of major long stuff. But you never know, Nelson. We're like, it's the internet, my friend. You know, Brian did a video on TikTok a few months ago. It was just a Portuguese, someone coughing, and Brian just said when your father's choking on an espinha, and right now it's at 2.2 million views. So you just never know. You don't know, something silly could just go viral. So, but we'll take them all. We'll take 2 million. I'll take 200. You know, for us, views are views. So as long as we're making people laugh and giving people, just a chance to forget about their worries for a few moments and have a chuckle with us. That's the purpose for us.
Well, Derek, thank you so much for coming on the show. Wish you the best, and we'll see you. We'll see you in Azores when you come back with your tour.
Hey,
All the
Nelson, you
best.
owe me a cerveja when I go out there, my friend. Don't think I forgot. I'm gonna go right to your door, my friend.
I'll take you across to speak good wines for sure.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Derek. Appreciate it. All the best. Thank you for being on the show. Pauline as well. Keep rocking that radio station. We appreciate your work. Thank you so much. And next up, to close our segment, we're going to have a special guest here. Very, 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 very good friend of mine that I'm very excited to bring on the show. And we have with us Roberto Lino with Azores X in Pico. He is a great example of how you can live a great, beautiful life in America without going into too many details, because I'm a good friend of his, but I could tell you he had the perfect American dream happening for him. And he did decide to come to Pico, and he invested in Pico, and he has several employees now in an area that is very needed in consulting with Azores X. And welcome to the show, my good friend Roberto Lino with Azores X. Welcome, Roberto.
Hey, Nelson. Thank you for having me on the show. It's a
Absolutely.
privilege.
You're a hard one to get. I've been doing interviews on RTP for almost 15 years, and you were one of the few that kept telling me, find somebody else. So I know you don't like the spotlight, but you do deserve, especially because you have a lot to say and you have a lot of experience, have a lot of know-how. Tell us first, why did you leave the American dream, the California dream, to come to another beautiful place, Pico? But it's two places that is hard to compete. And in my eyes, I know for you it's an easier choice.
Yeah, it was an easier choice. It was an easier choice. I left Pico. I joke with my friends. I was in California for 20 years, 1 month, and 1 day. So I left with always having in my mind that one day I would return. And I know many of us who leave Portugal to go to the US go with the same idea. I was lucky enough to have all the stars align in the different contexts, right? So the professional side, I had a good career in the US. I was lucky and worked hard, of course. I also was lucky to have a wife and a family who were willing to make this change in our lives. And it was mostly for two reasons. One, lots of opportunities for success in Portugal and in the Azores, as there is in the US. And in the Azores, as everybody knows, everybody who's watching, it's a calmer life. And so, time goes by a little slower here. And it seems like you can spend more time with your family, and of course, we're all aware of the beautiful nature surrounding us. So that was the main reason.
That's a great reason. And now, Hubert, tell us a bit about, to those that are listening to us and will listen next in the future, why we have this notion outside in the communities that it's very difficult to invest in Azores. Some say that it's not worth it in Azores, Portugal, Madeira in general. What would you say, and what was your experience having founded already Azores X, having several employees and dealing with the actual situations. I think the audience would be interested in your perspective.
Yeah, I think the key here is patience. As I was just saying, things happen at a different pace in the Azores, but they do happen. So if you're patient, if you're persistent, if you have a vision of what you want to do, if you work hard, you can be very successful in the Azores. There are lots and lots of opportunities. My company, just to tell you a little bit about what we decided to do, we have three key areas: marketing, management, and logistics and services. So we wanted to focus our business on something that could help the Azores move forward in creating value. So we're a small region, and we can never produce products in large quantities. So we have to focus a lot more on the quality of the products, on the quality of the brands we're developing. So that was one big area we wanted to tackle. The other area was in the management side of things. We want to help Azorians become more productive. We want to help develop the resources, in particular human resources, on the islands. And then the last area of logistics, primarily services, we wanted to show people that it's possible to do things in different ways. And I'll give you a couple examples. On the marketing side, we work with a couple of local clients on the digital marketing front, some clients in the US. We have a big client here in the Azores, which is the Macasur, so the Azores brand. We're helping the government develop a new strategy for the brand of the Azores. That's a very exciting project for us because we get to impact all these different areas simultaneously. So we get to help imagine what the Azores should stand for in 10, 20 years, which is very exciting. On the management side, we helped develop the first incubator on Pico Island, and we're now on our third incubator. We have about, over the last 2 years, we have 60 new startups. So there's a lot of people who want to do new things. They just didn't have the resources, the guidance, and the helping hand to make things happen. And then on the services side, we're focused mostly on property management. So we manage rental properties for the summer. And then we also manage upkeep on properties during the winter for people who don't spend the winters here in the Azores. So those are three key areas where we kind of saw that the values we wanted for our company. So create value, to help develop in the areas of sustainability, and to have a positive impact on culture. We picked these investments and initiatives to kind of start off with.
And I know it's something that you might not want to answer, but I'll try anyway. As a consulting company, there's a lot of money coming from Europe now. The 2030 funds are going to be renewed. We kind of came to Azores when there was no money left on the 2020. There's expectation there'll be funds there available for people to invest. It's taking a long time now with the changes of government and all of these things. What's your expectation as far as an advice for those who want to invest? What should they start doing at this point so that they can guarantee that things go well and they don't complain about the bureaucracy and they don't get frustrated? I know a lot of Portuguese are frustrated with their experience. What would you advise on that department?
No, and I understand that, and I deal with that on a daily basis through the 60 projects, startups we have here on the incubator. There are challenges, right? So first piece of advice I would give to anyone who wants to invest in the Azores is do it. Lower tax rates, and you get access to all the funding that's coming from Europe, which is for this next framework will be around $3.1 billion of investments just in what they call the PO. And then we have the other programs around the PRR, which is the Recuperation Resilience Program. There's another, I don't know, 500, 600, 700 million coming, focusing mostly on areas of digital transition, activities, services, products related to this beautiful ocean that surrounds us, and of course, sustainability and all of those things. So the first is, do it, be prepared, have a vision, come with a plan, and then focus on human resources. It's one of the big challenges we have right now in the Azores is qualified human resources. As you know, we work closely with the secretary in that area, a good friend of ours, and he's making a lot of effort and diligence to, one, bring more youth, keep the youth that we usually send to the universities in Lisbon, Porto, Coimbra, etc., figure out ways to bring them back, retain them, and also help develop and bring knowledge over to the Azores. So if you come and invest in the Azores, take advantage of the programs, focus. Again, patience is key. Things do happen a little slower here, but find a set of partners and a set of human resources that can help develop your business. A lot of people, come over, try to build a business, but don't focus on their most important asset, which is people. And that is the cause of failure in most businesses here in the Azores, as it is anywhere in the world. So one of the first things I did was I started building around me a group of incredible, young, talented, I can call them kids now,
And I've witnessed
that
how,
are
how
doing
many
an incredible job.
about how many employees you have at this point. It's harder to get qualified uh, uh, workers on this area, but you've been able to succeed at that.
Yeah, we have about 12 people now in the company, ranging from marketing consultants to gardeners, cleaning, all the areas we need for property management, for the management piece. We have 2 people managing the incubators, and we have consultants in the area of business management, human resources, and now we're getting into the formação, which in English would be, I guess, educational courses.
Well, great. Good job. Thank you for all you do. The Azores needs that innovation, that push. Thank you so much for all you do, for being in the show. And any predictions on the elections out there? More than 90% will vote, or Portuguese will still be a little disconnected from the elections this Sunday?
No, I think your guests, your previous guests, were much more qualified in that area than I am. But I definitely agree with, I think, a common thread between Catherine and Paulina, and I think even Mr. Onésimo touched on it a little bit, which is communication. I think Portugal needs to do a much better job in communicating to the Portuguese all over the world that, first of all, no, you don't have to sign up to be able to vote. And then 2, what do all those symbols mean, and what am I voting for? So I agree with all of them, and it was great to be part of this panel. So Nelson, thank you so much, and great job on the show. I'm looking forward to future programs and to following what you develop. Best of luck.
Well, thank you all for watching Portuguese in History Heritage Home, and in our last few minutes of this show, I would like to thank everybody that participated. Comment, share this program. We will be back next Wednesday at about the same time. We will post the times out there, and we want to become a reference in the Portuguese communities abroad that live Portugal, but that are not always connected because of language. So we appreciate your comments, your shares. Please share this, comment, and give us suggestions of what we should have next. Thank you to our Secretary of Health for our updates, Clélio. I hope the Azores recovers. I hope Portugal recovers, and we will continue to monitor that situation. And I would like to offer you, to finish this live, the Portuguese in Highlights, the documentary, a 9-episode series for RTP that we aired a few years ago, and we're going to offer you here free as a thank you for being in the show. And to end our show, we're going to have Portuguese in California, the highlights. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Azores 6 Lisbon. And you have to figure the rest of the world, because the Portuguese are present in more than 140 countries. Thank you so much for watching.
Saí de lá para fora bem obrigado, porque eu gostava muito de estar nas ilhas. Mas nós éramos 9 irmãos. Meu pai morreu, eu tinha 11 anos.
In the early 15th century, the first European set foot in California, it was Portuguese. 3 centuries later, immigrants faced the oceans for months, looking for a better life in this new world. These are their stories. It was to a Portuguese that the very heart of California, along Drake's Bay, owed its first European occupation and incorporation in the civilized world. Under Cabrillo's command, the small fleet set sail northward from modern-day Mexico, and on September 28, 1542, arrived at a bay he named San Miguel. Years later, the place name was changed to San Diego. I, Cabrillo, take possession of this land, these waters, and this harbor. The 17th century Portuguese writer, Antonio Vieira, wrote, God gave the Portuguese a small country as a cradle, but all the world as their grave. All Portuguese and Spanish possessions, which included California, were under one king for 60 years. 19th century life in the Azores was the product of over 300 years of struggling to make a living from the soil in an isolated environment. Whenever life in the islands became impossible, people left. Overpopulation, economic crises, and the lack of outside involvement in the archipelago have all provoked emigration. The first settlers were a mixed group of people from the Portuguese provinces of Algarve and Minho, Madeireans, Moorish prisoners, black slaves, French, Italians, Scots, English and Flemings were among the early settlers. There were criminals, Spanish clergy, Jews, soldiers, government officials, European merchants and sugarcane growers. Because of the isolated nature of the islands and the harshness of the land and at times climate, all settlers had to work together to survive.
Nossa casa não havia água corrente, não havia luz elétrica, era um candeeiro a petróleo, íamos buscar a água, era um chafariz, um poço que havia lá, de maneira que a alimentação era muito... Não passávamos fome, mas passávamos dificuldades, porque comíamos basicamente era sopas e quando se matava o porco, ou quando passava um carro lá e matava uma galinha, as galinhas davam para rolas.
Pãezinho ainda faltava, mas Lá outras coisas não havia porque não se podia.
Era trabalhar de noite, de começar da manhã, mesmo crianças que a gente saía da escola, tinha que ir trabalhar, ajudar o meu pai, tinha que ser assim. Foi uma vida dura, posso dizer assim, uma vida difícil.
On Tuesday, June 27, 1542, with sails spread in a favorable wind, the San Salvador and the Victoria set out from the west coast of Mexico. The fleet continued along the coast until September 28, 1542, when the expedition sighted a very good harbor, which Cabrillo named San Miguel. He was the first white man to sight what would later be renamed San Diego Bay.
Baleia, baleia, grita vigia, o alto da aldeia, baleia.
The Azorians first came to the United States in large numbers as members of whaling crews. They began with shore whaling in the channel between the islands of San Jorge and Pico. Whaling crews were always needed, and they could be found at the Azores. Yankee captains would disembark from New England and head for the Azores or the Cape Verde Islands, looking for sailors. They liked the Portuguese. They were hard-working, quiet, and cheap. Starting in 1857, San Diego played a highly important role in whale hunting. The industry peaked in 1871, but the whaling industry was running out of whales. Shortly it would be replaced by the petroleum industry. Many Portuguese earned their way to the east coast of the United States, to Hawaii or to California, by shipping out as a deckhand aboard these early whaling ships. The whaling ship was the early highway to the New World.
When my grandparents on my mother's side of the family got off the train station in Hanford, California in 1904, with just a couple of shamalas, little in their wildest dreams, I'm sure, would they think that 100 years later, their grandson would be running for the United States Congress and being successful and being elected.
In 1945, Portugal had an extensive colonial empire. The new regime was authoritarian, and the young Portuguese man went to war to control many colonies in Africa. After the Carnation Revolution, in April 25, 1974, a new wave of Portuguese came to America, determined to succeed.
Eu lembro-me de primo do meu pai ir lá, que estava para a América há 30 e tal anos. Fui visitá-lo, quando vivia lá no farol da Piedade, lá no Pico, e aqui fazia uma confusão como é que era uma pessoa que estava fora da sua terra 30 e tal anos, sem voltar. E aqui estou eu, 45 anos.
Nos quintais já não há vida, não há porco a criar, já não há roupa estendida, nem galinhas para tratar. Falta o eco das trindades, no vazio das tardes frias, restam agora saudades, recordações desses dias. Mudam os tempos e as vontades, mudam os ventos, pensamentos e vaidades.
Coming to a strange country from so far away and really leaving everything behind, it's tough, and really understanding what they've had to go through, I think really makes you appreciate it more and more as time goes on.
Ninguém veio pela aventura de imigração. E ainda não falei com uma pessoa que chegasse à América e disse: vim pela aventura, porque ainda estava muito aborrecido, não tinha nada a fazer. Estava mesmo. E então vim na aventura da imigração. A imigração é um drama importantíssimo e um drama que dói na família.
É incrível a força de imigração dos portugueses. Parece que já estão habituados, é de raiz. É os descobrimentos. Os portugueses sempre foram conquistadores do mundo inteiro. E parece que já temos isso no sangue. Vamos para qualquer parte do mundo. É os açorianos para a costa leste, para a Califórnia, para o Canadá. É os madeirenses para a África do Sul, para a Austrália, para a Venezuela. É os continentais para a Suíça, para a Inglaterra. Nós já estamos habituados a isso. Um país tão pequenino, com 10 milhões de habitantes neste momento, mas espalhados por todo o mundo. Somos conquistadores. Já éramos há 500 anos e continuamos a ser, através da imigração. Nós somos todos cabritos.
Hardship builds character. This is seen time and time again throughout history. And this applies to the Azorians. They had to survive earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, fierce storms, crop disease, European wars, and pirate raids, to name their greatest challenges. Because of their isolation in the middle of the Atlantic, they became self-reliant, independent, and harmonious to survive. Portugal as a whole, which includes the Azores from 1864 to 1973, had over 2 million immigrants. Next to Ireland, Portugal had the largest number of immigrants during that period of time per capita. Of the 2 million immigrants, 160,000 went to the United States and were almost exclusively Azorians. It has been said Portugal's principal export is its people. There were essentially three waves: 1820 to 1870, 1870 to 1930, and 1960 to the present. A total of 436,837 Portuguese came to America. It is safe to assume that at least 80%, if not higher, were from the Azores. About half came to California to work in whaling, fishing, agriculture, and gold mining. The latest wave of mass Portuguese migration began in 1958 after the first Azorian Refugee Act, sponsored by Senators John Kennedy of Massachusetts and John Pastore of Rhode Island. Numerous refugees from Capelinos volcanic eruptions came to America. Many of these immigrants from the Azores set down roots in California.
A migração que está aqui do Pico Faial é resultado do pós-Capelinhos e depois o Azorian, não só o Azorian Refugee Act, mas também a chamada Family Reunification Act do John F. Kennedy, ou seja, o que a gente chama em português, e eu gosto muito mais do termo em português, a carta de chamada.
The symbolism of the immigrant can be seen in the heroic 12-ton statue of pure white Portuguese marble in the city of San Leandro, dedicated in 1964. It was on August 6, 1868, that a small group of Portuguese immigrants gathered in the city by the Golden Gate to found the Portuguese Benevolent Association of the city and county of San Francisco.
Initially, we were a source for those immigrants coming from Portugal and from the Azores and from other areas who spoke the Portuguese language to get together, to socialize, to share their stories and share their successes and defeats.
In the early days, the ladies of the colony suspected the men were meeting to practice masonry rituals. In 1901, in the 15th Annual Convention, a resolution was passed to invite King of Portugal, Carlos, to become honorary president of the Supreme Council. 3 years later, the king accepted. By 1928, the UPEC had expanded to over 25,000 members, including some non-Portuguese. Portuguese Californian immigrants have played a significant role in American politics. In 1900, John G. Matos from Fayal was the first Portuguese in California to be elected to a state-level political position. This would be something impossible under Salazar and the Azores. Decades later, E.H. Christian and Anton A. Rogers were also elected. In 1967, Joseph Gonzalez was joined in the assembly by a man that made history. His name was John Vasconcelos. He served 38 consecutive years. Neither Portuguese or non-Portuguese legislators ever achieved this in the history of the state. Tony Coelho, a third-generation descendant from the island of Terceira, was the first Portuguese Californian at the national level. He was followed by many others. By 1960, Senator Henry Mello, with roots in South George and Terceira Island, had become chairman of the Democratic Central Committee on the John F. Kennedy campaign. By the year 2000, 5 Portuguese Americans were serving at the national level.
Beginning in the 60s and in the 70s and the 80s and 90s, had as many as 4 to 6 members of the legislature of Portuguese ancestry. And in Washington, D.C., of course, first beginning with Congressman Tony Coelho in the late 1970s, but also as recently as the last 10 years, we've had 4 members of Congress of Portuguese ancestry.
Quem é que sabe em Portugal que há congressistas federais no Congresso Federal norte-americano de origem portuguesa e que vêm aqui exatamente da Califórnia? Todos eles, aliás.
Nós não podemos passar ao lado que aqui na Califórnia temos mais de 500 mil de luso-descendentes. Isto é importante demais para que Portugal passe ao lado desta grande realidade dos nossos portugueses além fronteiras.
The Portuguese communities around here, especially Azorean communities, have been in California for a long time, and they're part of the real history of California. And I'm one of the products of this Azorean culture that has kind of its own culture here in California that's developed with the different festas and Holy Ghost festivals. There's been a few Azoreans, Americans that have been elected to Congress, and there's never been anybody from Portugal or whose family's from Portugal. Almost all of them are from the Azores, or families are from the Azores. And oftentimes what you find in this country and really around the globe is that nobody even knows where or what the Azores are.
In Portuguese, I never would see that as a handicap. I'd see it as a benefit. Being bilingual or even trilingual, where I pick up a little bit of Spanish and able to speak to others in the community, I think that actually helped me quite a bit. But it played out very well for me, just my background and who I am, and it helped to build me to the person I am today. So I see it as a huge benefit, and I'm a lucky person to be born where I was born, when I was born.
The United States is a country of immigrants, fundamentally, and I think it's terribly important that one maintains the contact, the link between the diaspora, people that are now American citizens, but very proud of their origins, and the countries they come from. And most of these immigrants come from Europe.
Califórnia é cerca de 4,5 vezes o tamanho de Portugal. Portanto, em si já é revelador da dimensão do Estado. E a nossa comunidade não está só num sítio. É gigantesco o Estado, as distâncias são muito grandes.
Concentra uma das maiores, se não mesmo a maior, comunidade entre luso-americanos e portugueses existente neste país.
A Califórnia é o estado mais populoso dos Estados Unidos, que é a 9ª economia do mundo, é uma região com um elevado espírito empreendedor e inovador, e é de muito interesse para Portugal conseguir reforçar as suas relações de comércio e de investimento com esta região dos Estados Unidos.
Na Califórnia verifica-se talvez de forma mais nítida uma integração nas comunidades de acolhimento, talvez fruto da distância. O facto é que, desde logo a nível político, ainda hoje temos vários congressistas federais e estaduais na Califórnia que são açorianos ou descendentes de açorianos. E dessa forma isso é bem sintomático da forma como se processou essa integração no plano político, no plano económico, com empresários bem-sucedidos em diversas áreas da economia e também na forma como, ao nível da educação, da ciência, do saber, essa comunidade, a nossa comunidade na Califórnia se foi afirmando. E este potencial que representa para os Açores esta grande massa de gente que se sente ainda ligada, apesar do passar dos anos, que se sente ainda ligada a estes 9 bocadinhos de terra aqui no meio do Atlântico, acaba por ser também de grande importância para a própria região autónoma dos Açores.
It's something that you got. It's extra. You're proud and you're great to be an American, but to go to my home where I was born in Portugal is more than it just is what it does.
In 1851, Manuel F. Cabral, a native of Ribeiros Pico, landed on Point Loma Island. The community continued to grow, and in 1897, 25 fishermen founded the Portuguese Union Fishing Company. In 1913, Joseph Azevedo set up their first tuna cannery in their home garden, and that later became the San Diego Packing Company. World War I increased orders for the canned sardines necessary to supply American troops in Europe. Manuel O. Medina was one of the pioneers. Medina's Pacific was the largest fishing boat in San Diego. On February 15, 1942, 2 months after Japanese military planes bombed the United States Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, the U.S. Navy requisitioned the tuna vessels for military service. Some 600 fishermen of Portuguese descent volunteered. A total of 47 tuna boats were mobilized. As of 1967, 16 of the tuna clippers that had been converted into wartime coastal patrols were still fishing. Today, not a single one remains active in San Diego. The Portuguese developed cutting-edge techniques and mastered the sea. Early fishing was courageously done by a simple hook and a line with live bait for chum. Pole fishing followed. In some cases, 3 or 4 poles were attached to catch very large tunas. For generations, navigation and seamanship qualities have been handed down from father to son. Today, Cristiano da Rosa is one of the last living legends of the tuna industry.
Quando eu cheguei aqui à América, eu tive que fugir para o mar depressa. A minha vida foi uma vida de trabalhos, e os trabalhos foi o mar e barcos de peixe.
He worked hard. It was a hard life. I remember being a child, and it was a dangerous life. He had gotten hurt out fishing, and he had gotten hit in the face with the hose. And I remember being on the dock and seeing the boat come into port with the ambulance waiting. And as a young girl, you don't understand that. I was little, and I was scared, but when the boat pulled up to the dock, there was my father behind the helm running the boat in with his face all swollen. He went from docking the vessel to straight to the ambulance to the hospital. That's the type of person he was.
Quando eu voltava, queria ver os pequenos na doca. He was worked in a time and was raised in a time where
The men were made of steel and the boats were made of wood. And he was a strong person.
Ter apanhado alguns a gente chama storms, sabe? E é daqueles que a gente não gosta, mas tinha que se apanhar. Tinha que sofrer até que ele passasse, para salvar com a vida. Tinha que ir perdido por mais abaixo, entrar noutros mares, carregar o barquinho e fugir para casa. Um homem não chora. Enfrenta as coisas como elas são. Mas não é bom chorar.
By the 20th century, a small group of Portuguese immigrants had settled in Point Loma in pursuit of a life on the sea. They built churches, halls, and museums to celebrate their island traditions in their own motherland. They were the first in San Diego, and today the Portuguese remain one of the most successful and respected ethnic groups.
And if you see where most of the Portuguese live here, most of them live in a section of Point Loma we call Tunaville or Roseville, and many of them live up on the hill overlooking the water, just like it was in Madeira or Pico, where most of them came from.
In 1781, 44 settlers, Los Pobladores, founded El Pueblo de la Nuestra Señora la Reina de Los Angeles. Not too far from the original 44 settlers, Jose Aroca arrived in the region after deserting English schooner Columbian in 1814. At that time, LA was approximately 600 people. He was the first Portuguese settler in California. It is said his skills earned him protection from the missionaries. Roja built a house in the center of Pueblo, raised a herd of 600 in Rancho La Brea, married the daughter of the settlement's police chief, and died at just 47. The home he built later served as the Los Angeles City Hall. Eliseo Martins was one of many benefactors in making the Portuguese Hall what it is today. The Artesia DES was always the heart of the community. It was founded in 1927 and built in 1935 to promote the traditions of the Portuguese in Artesia. In 1974, the Artesia DES went through a massive reorganization due to the ideas of a growing number of immigrants that came primarily from Terceira, Azores, who wanted to become more active in the community and close to their families. The city of Artesia is recognized all over the world for its vibrant Portuguese community. Today, it is one of the most impressive and complete Portuguese community centers in America. More actors, dancers, and musicians living and working in Los Angeles than any other city at any time in the history of civilization. Many of these recognized faces are of Portuguese descent. Perhaps one of the most recognized Portuguese Americans in the world is actor Joaquim Almeida, known for his roles in hundreds of films and TV shows. He was one of the first Portuguese household names worldwide.
Eu vim para a Califórnia há 10 anos, quando vim fazer o 24 Horas, e aluguei uma casa aqui um apartamento aqui nas Torres, aqui em Santa Mónica, e olhei e disse, pá, eu aqui conseguia viver. Eu nunca tinha gostado muito de Los Angeles, mas eu aqui de Los Angeles gostava de viver aqui na praia, pode-se andar a pé, parece mais uma vila, e estamos em Los Angeles, quer dizer, apesar de se chamar sítio Santa Mónica. E agora, ao fim de 37 anos, é estranho, quando eu digo 37 anos, é muito tempo. É uma vida, não é? Para 37 anos é uma vida, estar entre Los Angeles e Nova Iorque, está-se bem. A Califórnia, acho que está-se bem, sobretudo aqui na praia, temos um clima fantástico. É o sítio que se tem que estar quando se faz cinema, portanto vou continuando por aqui. Eu realmente, a minha carreira aqui começou a pegar. Eu fiz o primeiro filme com 24 anos, mas depois o segundo filme com 26 anos, o terceiro que eu falei tinha 28, e depois a partir daí é que ela começou a andar bem. Portanto, espero que no futuro próximo haja mais portugueses dentro do cinema. Não vem competir comigo, não tem a mesma idade que eu, portanto não é uma coisa que... E a mim só me dá prazer, gostava de ver mais portugueses a terem sucesso por cá.
A new recent wave of immigration brought to California accomplished professionals seeking to expand their careers outside of Portugal.
Lembro-me perfeitamente de estar no topo dos arranha-céus em downtown, na Baixa de Los Angeles, e de virem umas lágrimas aos olhos porque estava ali quase sozinha, porque estava ali a comandar uma equipa de 50, 60 pessoas. O Fernando Fragata estava a realizar.
One of Portugal's most successful filmmakers moved to the City of Angels following his dream. He produced the first film done by a Portuguese in Hollywood, Love and Alchemy, won several international awards for Best Short Film and Best Director, Sweet Nightmare, and the critical acclaimed action comedy Chasing Life. In 2004, he wrote and directed The Trunk, which became top-grossing Portuguese film of that year. Backlight, the first film produced by a Portuguese in Hollywood, broke box office records in Portugal.
Quando eu cheguei aqui, em 92, ainda era muito novo, ainda não tinha feito filme nenhum, mas tinha o sonho, obviamente, né? Mas foi difícil, bastante difícil a adaptação, porque inclusive era tudo bastante diferente. Eu conhecia pouco, não conhecia aqui ninguém, vim sozinho completamente, foi uma aventura. E quando cheguei, por exemplo, a Hollywood Boulevard, foi um choque, a Sunset Boulevard, porque aquilo não era o que é hoje, aquilo era um bocado assustador na altura, estamos a falar em 92. Hoje aquilo já está tudo bonitinho, tem lá o Kodak Theater, etc, as ruas estão muito mais limpas, mas na altura então foi um choque enorme, principalmente porque o que eu conhecia daquilo era o que eu via nos filmes, e os filmes pintam a coisa de uma maneira toda glamourosa, etc, e quando eu lá cheguei, mas isto não é nada que eu vi nos filmes.
Barbara Oliveira Pinto is from the new generation of Portuguese women living and working in Hollywood.
A nível do cinema, tive a oportunidade de entrevistar gente que adorava e que tinha crescido comigo aos domingos à tarde, ver aquelas máquinas todas em Portugal, não é? E de repente olho-me ao espelho e digo, quem diria eu estar agora cara a cara com estes protagonistas da nossa infância e da nossa juventude.
Los Angeles is home to many Academy Award-winning film music composers. A native of Madeira Island, won Breakout Composer of the year 2010 by the International Film Music Critics Association. He was nominated for a Gold Spirit Award in 2011 for Best Revelation Composer, Best Score for a Drama Film in 2011 at the International Film Music Critics Association, and Best Original Score for a Feature Film at the Hollywood Music and Media Awards.
Eu sempre tinha querido vir para cá, portanto havia uma ligação quase espiritual, talvez, não sei, porque eu nunca tinha estado aqui, mas eu lembro-me de estar a aterrar em Los Angeles e a passar por cima, ver-se a imensidão que Los Angeles é e senti-me mais ou menos, senti que estava a chegar a casa de alguma maneira, de um ponto de vista mais espiritual.
Eu vim para a Califórnia em 2002 para ser mestrina titular da orquestra Young Musicians Foundation Debut Orchestra, uma orquestra pré-profissional com jovens até aos 25 anos. Depois fui mestrina assistente da Orquestra de Câmara de Los Angeles e entre 2004 e 2008 fui mestrina assistente da Orquestra Filarmónica de Los Angeles.
The mystique and mythology of rock and roll made LA a music mecca. Among its legends, Portuguese-American Joe Perry, lead singer from Journey, Steve Perry, and Azorian award-winning singer and composer Linda Perry, to Sarah native Nuno Betancourt.
Look, by no means being Portuguese You know, in every culture we have our good and our bad, you know, our good and our bad people, you know, and but as a culture itself, initially, where it comes from, I didn't recognize it when I was younger, but it took me to go away and around the world a bunch of times to come back home to go, wow, what a difference from what I saw and what I felt from different people in different cultures, how important it was at home, in a Portuguese home.
The Portuguese are pioneers in California's agribusiness, from sweet potatoes and dairies to bullfighting. The Portuguese have been the backbone of California's small agricultural communities for over a century. The San Joaquin Valley is the state's top agricultural producing region, sometimes called the food basket of the world. San Joaquin Valley produces 12.8% of the United States agricultural production. There are more Azorean Portuguese in the San Joaquin Valley than in all 9 of the Azorean Islands. In 1888, the Portuguese introduced sweet potato cultivation to the valley. By 1923, about 85% of those involved with milk production in Merced and Stanislaus counties were of Portuguese origin. In 1939, some 100,000 immigrants from Portugal and their descendants were estimated to be living in California. 60% or more were engaged in agriculture, 75% working in the dairy industry.
A seguir de San Diego, eu penso que a comunidade per capita mais rica, de facto, é o de Val São Joaquim. Porque há aqui, de facto, explorações agrícolas, não é? Que valem milhões e milhões. Temos muitos luso-americanos que estão neste negócio, que têm 3 mil, 5 mil, 12 mil, 18 mil vacas. Para além disso, são pessoas que têm terras e normalmente não têm 50 acres ou 25. São pessoas que, muitas delas, têm 5 mil, 6 mil, 7 mil acres de terra. Nem toda a gente, como eu já escrevi alguns, nem toda a gente vive à rica e à francesa a fumar charutos cubanos, não é?
Most dairies in the valley are owned by Portuguese from the islands of Terceira and São Jorge. Before the Carnation Revolution in 1974, many Portuguese came to this area to avoid the war in the African colonies. Life in the islands became close to impossible. Many, like Manuel Sosa, left. Overpopulation, economic crises, and periodic lack of outside involvement in the archipelago provoked immigration to every single place on the surface of the earth.
Quando arrebentou lá aquela 25 de Abril, ela até tinha 3 filhos, deixou lá, foi que todo dia mandava vir, mas sempre se mandou. E então minha mãe ainda teve aqui 14 anos, mais os filhos todos juntos. Sempre fizemos aquela aventura, porque ela sofreu muito para acabar de criar a gente. Mas, seja por amor de Deus, até hoje ainda não me arrependi, então ter vindo para esta terra. Gosto muito das ilhas, vou lá quando posso, mas, seja por amor de Deus, estou satisfeito aqui. Depois fui lá ao cabo de 12 anos, parecia-me que podia trabalhar à mesma como eu cantava lá, mas já fazia muita diferença. Disse, não, as ilhas para mim acabar a sobreviver cá, quando puder, com respeito a trabalhar é na América.
In San Joaquin Valley, 52.6% of dairies producing grade milk in 1972 were under the ownership or management of people of Portuguese descent. In the 1990s, California's Azorean Americans owned roughly 365,000 head of dairy cattle with a combined value of $1.5 billion.
48% das vacarias na Califórnia são de luso-descendentes. E estamos a falar num negócio que cada ano gira 6,6 bilhões de dólares.
Somos 3 irmãos que, desde o princípio, começámos sempre o negócio junto e continuamos juntos.
temos como 7.000 cabeças e temos uma segunda leitaria que são 1.000 cabeças das de Georges.
Temos caminhões de leite, neste momento estamos a fazer, a cartar 42, 43 caminhões de leite diário para a fábrica de Romar e temos caminhões a cartar ervas do estado de Oregon e de Nevada e de Califórnia.
In the 1980s and 90s, several dairies moved from California to the state of Idaho. A small Portuguese community concentrated in the area of Twin Falls, Buell, and Wendell. The Betancourt dairies employ more than 300 employees milking more than 30,000 cows in 8 facilities, making it the largest single milk producer in the world.
Número 1 em quê? Número 1 é a mulher.
Começou em 82, com 17 vacas, depois foi comprando vacas e leitarias. Temos agora, já tive 60.000 vacas, agora tenho 40.000 vacas.
Starting in the 1970s, several Learias owners began raising bulls, fostering an intense activity in the field of tauromachi. Bullfighting traces its roots to historic bull worship and sacrifice in Mesopotamia and the Mediterranean region. Most Portuguese bullfights are held in 2 phases, the spectacle of the Cavaleiro and the Pega. In the Cavaleiro, a horseman on a Portuguese Lusitano horse, specially trained for the fighters, fights the bull from horseback. In the second stage, called the Pega, the Forcador, a group of 8 men challenge the bull directly without any protection or weapon of defense.
A gossip point when you're meeting new people and they ask you what you do for a living and you say that you raise fighting bulls and they're like, what? You know, under the California code, you may have a bullfight, a bloodless bullfight, if it's in injunction with a religious ceremony, que é como uma festa. And that's the only way that you can have a bullfight. But again, it's bloodless, so that means that you can't draw any blood and no cruelty.
One of the contributions of the Portuguese in the Atwater Buhak area was the development of the sweet potato industry in California. Today, Manuel Eduardo Vieira, known as the Sweet Potato King, is one of the most decorated Portuguese Americans in the world. A native of Pico Island, he developed a small family business into a large enterprise.
Meu tio convidou-me para visitar a sua empresa e sugeriu que eu a comprasse. Estou falando em julho de 77, há quase 36 anos. Nós cultivamos produto biológico 2.000 acres americanos, que são 8.000 acres portugueses. Tem épocas do ano que trabalhamos com 950 pessoas, mais de 50.000 toneladas, 50 milhões de quilos. 35% é produto biológico. Segundo a USDA, nós somos o maior produtor biológico do mundo em batata doce. E o nosso produto é vendido para todo o continente norte-americano, Canadá ao norte, Estados Unidos e México. Nós, graças a Deus, temos o domínio total.
The most important festa is without a doubt the Espírito Santo, Holy Ghost. More than 160 celebrations were held in approximately 130 different cities and small towns throughout the state. No other festival is so Portuguese or filled with more meaning in the life of the Azorean. The Festa's high point occurs on Sunday when a solemn procession departs from the Portuguese social hall for the Catholic Church, where Mass is said and the Queen is crowned. Afterwards, the parade forms up again and returns to the hall. Sopas do Espírito Santo, as Holy Ghost soup, is served free to all comers, Portuguese or not. These volunteer-based brotherhoods serve approximately 200,000 free meals every year, a number just slightly inferior to the total population of the Azores.
Apesar de ser uma das comunidades mais distantes geograficamente, fica aqui no lado do Pacífico, é uma comunidade que ainda vive muito a nossa identidade cultural. E isto é de louvar. Aliás, isto é uma homenagem que todos os açorianos devem dar a esta grande comunidade que é a comunidade da Califórnia.
The San Francisco Bay Area is home to one of the largest concentrations of Portuguese in America. Santa Cruz County and the Monterey Bay region are also home to many Portuguese that settled by the ocean. The Big Sur extends for miles in the California coastline, from Carmel to San Luis Obispo. Big Sur's isolation and natural beauty attracts many writers and artists. California's largest urban concentration of Portuguese is located in San Jose and Santa Clara. Little Portugal, the Portuguese commercial district, is a few blocks away from the Portuguese National Church of the Five Wombs, dedicated in 1914, where several Portuguese organizations built their halls. Today, it is still the center of the Portuguese community in the Bay Area. Nowadays, Portuguese immigrants and their descendants occupy a wide range of positions in California's industries.
Nós tínhamos trabalhos desde o sul da Califórnia ao estado de Nevada e ao arquipélago de Havaí. Fazíamos trabalhos muitíssimo grandes para o governo federal.
Os primeiros 9 anos nunca tirámos férias. Os primeiros 9 anos casados nunca tirámos férias. Tínhamos uma ambição, queríamos começar o nosso negócio e fomos para a frente.
Portuguese immigrants' achievements have been impressive. Driven by a fierce work ethic, upon entering into America, they took advantage of the opportunities that Portugal did not offer at the time.
Nós nunca tivemos medo de avançar, porque nós principiámos sem nada e se a gente perdesse tudo, também ficámos sem nada outra vez. Mas o sentido não era esse, o sentido era conquistar sempre mais e mais e mais e mais.
Silicon Valley is a nickname for the South Bay portion of the San Francisco Bay Area. The region occupies roughly the same area as the Santa Clara Valley. It is home to many of the world's largest technology corporations, as well as thousands of small startups. For nearly 2 centuries before the tech companies, this farming community produced a significant amount of fruits and vegetables until the 1960s.
Nós temos aqui em São Francisco, muito perto de São Francisco, Silicon Valley, e temos, portanto, aqui toda a parte de investimento em que as nossas empresas, algumas delas já estão aqui implantadas e bem implantadas, com sucesso.
Uma passada por Stanford passa pelo Google Building, o edifício Google, o edifício Yahoo, o edifício Hewlett-Packard, o Facebook.
My most gratifying position at IBM was the webmaster for the IBM Year 2000 Technical Support Center. That was a very interesting time because the year 2000 transition could have been disastrous on a global scale.
I'm a product of the dot-com boom, so I started my career back in the early 90s when the internet was just forming.
A lot of the best companies to work for that have been voted that and given that honor are right here in our backyard.
Na Califórnia é prazer ver que as pessoas, os portugueses, portanto não criaram guetos, não é? E que se misturam e que absorvem a cultura e que aprendem com isso. E por isso vingam tanto na vida, e acho que isso é muito importante.
Many Portuguese have moved from dairy farming and tuna fishing and are now fully integrated into the American economy without abandoning their Portuguese identity. John Mello, President and CEO of Amyris, and Angela Garcia, President of George Lucas Real Estate Holdings, are just 2 examples. By the late 20th century, more immigrants and their descendants began ascending the high-tech corporate ladder, assuming well-paid positions of responsibility and prestige in management.
Vocês não sabem que o imigrante leva consigo a ilha, não às costas como um pesadelo, mas como pérola formada pela saudade na concha de coração.
The second I smell that air, I feel like I belong there. You know, and a lot of people from there might get upset. Well, if you love this place so much, why don't you live here? Why don't you move here? And that's not really the case. The case is when you grow up where you grow up, that's where your work is. That's where your roots are now. But it doesn't mean that you can't go back and go like, wow, I feel like, you know, whether it's from the earth, you know, the earth there makes me feel like I'm from there. The smell of that earth makes me feel that I'm from there. And it makes me feel like, I'm at home. It's really bizarre. It's before I even get to the airport inside, I just feel like, wow, I'm home. You know, and you never forget that. I don't care how many years you live abroad, I don't care how many years you're away, you never lose that, ever.
E pronto, e viva as relações luso-americanas e um abraço a todos os luso-americanos.
E o mar antigo à nossa frente, em que o meu povo parte descontente e vive em terra estranha e fria. Canto a vida e a maresia, canto a vida e a maresia. Canto a vida e a maresia em teu corpo solto e quente. Minha lira é suave e fria. Entardece, loiro de cinza doira, esta nossa decantada solidão. No cais, deitados sobre o ventre, nos barcos repousa a sua melancolia. Recusam-se a cingrar neste mar azul, onde há vémitos de asas e remúrios de incensos, cujo aroma sabe bem ouvir. No cais, e por que não no mar, as esquinas escrevem um poema que só os marinheiros sabem traduzir. E eu descubro na humildade de seus gestos a dúvida, de ficar, talvez para